Chapter 23, The Empty Book. They won't let me visit him the first day, and Graham says I'll have to be patient and let the doctors do their business. But I can't stand just sitting around, so I decide to walk over to the hospital, which Grim says is miles and miles, but suit myself. I know how to get there because Freak and I went yonder that way once so he could show me the medical research building. It's not the same, though, without Freak along to turn the houses into castles and the swimming pools into moats. All I keep thinking is, what a jip it is to have to go into the hospital on your birthday. Finally, I get there, and I see the fair Gwen's car in the parking lot, but Grim says I should leave her alone and let her tend to her son. So what I do is go around back to the medical research building and find this stupid little tree I can sit under. I have the old ornithopter bird with me, and I'm winding it up and flying it around, figuring maybe Freak will get a chance to look out the window and see it flittering by. That's my plan. And I'm under that puny little tree messing with the bird until this guy mowing the lawn makes me move. So I wander around to the front of the hospital, and that's when the fair Gwen finds me. "Maxwell," she says, and she gives me this great big hug. A wet hug because she's been crying. "Max, we've been looking all over for you. Kevin wants to see you. He's making quite a fuss about it, and Dr. Spivak says it's okay, but just for a few minutes." So the fair Gwen takes me inside, and I figure we're heading for the medical research building, but instead we go into the regular hospital. "He's in the ICU, she says. So they're taking really good care of him." "They're doing their best, Max," she says. The intensive care unit, or ICU, is this place where there are so many nurses you can't hardly turn around without bumping into one, which I do as soon as we get there. Every patient gets a room alone, and there's all this electronic gear the fair Gwen says is called telemetry, which means when Freak sneezes, the nurses know about it before he can wipe his nose. I'm not scared at all until I actually go into his room and see how small he looks on the bed. They've got him sitting up with all these tubes going into his arms and up his nose, and Dr. Spivak is guarding him. She won't let me come too close. "I thought no visitors was the best policy for now," Dr. Spivak says, "but what Kevin wants, Kevin gets." Dr. Spivak is this small woman with short red hair and a real stern face, and it's like she's mad because Freak wants to see me, or because I'll break some of her precious equipment. "That will be all," Freak says to her. "You are dismissed." The thing is, his voice sounds funny. Not just faint and weak, but kind of whistly. Only when I get closer do I see he's got this weird little plastic button stuck in his neck. "It's called a tracheotomy," he says, holding his finger against the button, which stops the whistling noise. "Standard procedure to facilitate breathing." So what is it? It's a hole that they put in your neck right here, and they put plastic around it so it looks like a button, and then in order to talk you have to cover it because otherwise your vocal cords don't work. I don't exactly understand the science, but I know that's how it works. "Does it hurt?" "No way," he says. "I think it's cool. Listen to this." Then he plays with his finger against the button, making his throat whistle a tune, which he says is the theme from Star Trek, although you can hardly recognize it. "So when do you come home?" I ask. Freak can't move much the way they've got him set up in the bed, so he sort of shakes his eyes instead of his head. "I'm not coming home," he says. "Not in my present manifestation." I go, "What?" "The bionic unit is on red alert," he says. "Tonight, they'll take me down there for my special operation. The next time you see me, I'll be new and improved." "I'm scared," I say. "Don't be a moron," he says. "You're not the one having surgery." I still wish they wouldn't. "Don't argue with me," he says. I have to lean close to hear him because his voice is so small and whispery. He goes, "If you argue with me, I'll get upset and they can tell on the telemetry. Then you'll get in trouble." So I just stand there like a lump and don't say anything for a while. I put the ornithopter on the foot of the bed, but I don't think he notices. "See that book on the table?" He can't point, but I see the book on the table. "Open it," he says. The book reminds me of the dictionary he gave me for Christmas, except when I open it, all the pages are blank. "That's for you," he says. "I want you to fill it up with our adventures." "Huh?" "Write it down, dummy. I was going to do it, but now it looks like I'll be busy getting used to my new bionic body. It'll probably take me weeks just learning how to walk with long legs. I put the book down. You're the one with the brain, I say. I'm the long legs. Don't get me upset, he warns. I won't have the time, so you'll have to do it. Just write it all down like you're talking. But in all the fun we had. Or put in all the fun we had. The cool things we did. Our adventures. But you know I can't write, Kevin. It's all in your head, Max. Everything you can remember. Just tell the story of Freak the Mighty. No big deal. I pick the book back up, but I don't say anything more about how useless it is, me trying to write stuff down, because I don't want to set off the telemetry. He does that himself about a minute later when he starts to cough, and before I can say anything, the room is swarming with nurses and Dr. Spivak is telling me I have to leave. Out this second, young man, and let us do our jobs. They let me wait outside the ICU with the fair Gwen, who's just standing there at the window, wringing her hands and not saying anything. And then finally they come out and say he's okay. It was just a bad spell that they have him stabilized. A while later, Graham comes into the hospital and she drives me home. Nobody talks much at supper that night, except when Grim opens his big mouth and says, "Poor Gwen looks like she's in terrible pain." I go, "Poor Gwen? She's not the one having the special operation." Grim and Graham just look at each other like they can't believe I'm so dumb. And finally Graham says, "Maxwell, dear, make an effort to eat your vegetables." That night I put the empty book in the pyramid box for safekeeping and for good luck.